The time trial in Solvang left no doubt as to who is the best biker here in California. Astana. The Rose Bowl's been home to some of the biggest sporting events in the world, including the Super Bowl and Women's World Cup soccer. Today it serves as the backdrop for the second to last day of cycling in this year's Amgen Tour of California, and it's going to be lucky number 7 for someone by the end of the stage. Hello everyone, along with my two partners for the penultimate day here in Pasadena, Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwen, I'm Craig Hummer. Yesterday, Levi Leipheimer was on a mission and he put on an impressive display of dominance and determination, Phil.
Yes, he absolutely did, Craig. He's won this tour for the last 2 years. He's always laid his foundations in the time trial on the same circuit. And you know, yesterday was no exception because this was a world-class time trial field. It would have been worthy of a World Time Trial Championship. The trend was set fairly early on by Gustaf Larsson. He won a silver medal in Beijing at the Olympic Games last year. He was on form here. When he got to the midway check, he was faster than anyone. When he got to the finish, a new best time of 30 minutes and 57 seconds. Just a couple of riders left to go. The next to start was Dave Zabriskie, the US champion.
Well, 4 times American champion at this discipline at half distance. He raised the bar a little bit higher than everyone else. And at the finish line, it was a brand new best time for Dave Zabriskie. And that was the time that Lance Armstrong was going to face himself up to. Retired from the sport, Phil, in 2005, his first time trial ever since that point, and he probably thought with these crowds he was back in the Tour.
Well, he performed for the crowd. After all, he doubled the number in attendance at Solvang. His time was a little off the pace, but that was to be expected, I think. Last man out in his yellow jersey, Levi Leipheimer. Here was a rider who feels this time trial course is his own. Well, I guess it was. At the checkpoint, he was 2 seconds quicker than Zabriskie, and he thought him losing on the run-in. Forget it. When he got to the finish, 3 fingers in the air, 3 wins, a best time, and now who's going to stop him making it 3 Amgen Tour of California?
No matter what time of year or where in the world the stage race happens, you better bring your A game in the time trial, and that's exactly what Levi Leipheimer did. He consolidates his lead in the overall, Phil, going 36 seconds clear of David Zabriskie. Michael Rogers drops to 3rd.
Yes, the big gain on the, I suspect, was Zabriskie. He beat Rogers by more than 4 seconds, which he only needed to do to move into 2nd place. He finished 2nd to Floyd Landis, don't forget, in 2006. Lance Armstrong slipped a little bit to now sit in 6th place overall. The top 10 completed by Francesco Mancebo. He came up into that 10th place. Tommy Danielson in 12th and Floyd Landis there in 36th. So he's moving up all the time.
Those are the notables to look at. Today, though, is the 8th day of racing, and Paul, the legs are definitely getting tired for the riders. It's not an easy day out there. They're going to crest almost 5,000 feet of elevation.
It's a very difficult day for the bike riders, and more difficult, I would say, for some of the guys who like to excel in the sprints, because those are the guys who will be wondering whether they're going to get over the big mountains. Moving away from Santa Clarita, a little incursion inland, only 88.9 miles of racing, but just have a quick look at that red spot in the middle. That is going to be very difficult.
Phil, today is a day for the gamblers, the breakaway artists. They're going to roll the dice, try to stay away. But Astana, they've got a little bit of house money to play with, but they still need to stay alert.
For my money, this is a very dangerous day for Astana. They must not get too confident now. They're all thinking Leipheimer has won this race. It's not so. These are 2 difficult days, and it's a wonderful circuit in Pasadena. It's not flat, and we do 5 laps when we come into town. At least it's not raining like it was last year, but this could be a very, very delicate stage.
With those 5 finishing circuits, Phil, you can bet the sprinters are going to try to claw their way back and bring this all together at the line, especially Mark Cavendish, who wants to protect that Herbalife green jersey.
Yes, he's won himself 2 individual stages, and I think his next goal is going to be the green jersey as leader of the points classification. And what he's going to have to try and do out on the course is make sure that he gets himself points at the first sprint point on the day, survive over the big climb of the day, and then hopefully his teammates can pull it all back together for what, as Phil said, is a very difficult finishing circuit round here, which is not necessarily made for the sprinters.
Mark Cavendish has that 6-point lead over Francisco Mancebo. He will not factor in, we think, by the end of the day, but it's Thor Hushovd, who sits only 8 points back, who is looking to gain points out on the road and by the end of the day. Early this morning at the start, it was another sunny day in Santa Clarita. Lance Armstrong and his good friend George Hincapie sharing a few words. Phil, I think the Astana squad knew that these attacks were going to come basically right from the beginning.
Yes, 106 riders on the start line. Ivan Basso, who didn't ride yesterday, has apparently injured his knee. Neither did Bernard Sulzberger, bringing the Flyvee Australia team down to just 2 riders. This is Tyler Hamilton saying hi to Levi Leipheimer as they roll away from Santa Clarita. This was a very fast start after the gentle start. Mark Cavendish here, relaxing in the bunch. The news we're about to give you might not make a lot of sense in a few minutes' time once we get this race underway, but for the moment Cavendish is in there. At the sprint, already out of the race, was Cavendish's lead-out man, Renshaw. He's abandoned, and nowhere at the front was Mark Cavendish for the sprint. Interestingly, watch the rider in yellow, Michael Rogers. He gets 3rd place there. He snatches a 1-second time bonus. He's closed the gap on Dave Zabriskie by 1 second.
However, you may well notice the man just pipping Michael Rogers on the line there was Tyler Farrar. Now, he will be defending the position of Dave Zabriskie. Zabriskie not participating in this sprint, but obviously a big battle for the time bonuses.
And Tyler Farrar takes 3 points, so that helps his cause as well. He still is in the running for that Herbalife green jersey. We take a look at those updated standings at the moment. Phil, Cavendish well established ahead of Mancebo, but Hushovd and Bonin, you figure by the end of the day, will factor in.
Well, watch out for Mancebo. The next sprint, and the only other sprint left of the day, is after we've crossed the mountain heading towards Pasadena. Maybe Mancebo will look for points there. But as I say, the big surprise of the day was the abandon of Mark Renshaw. We don't know why, but that's the lead-out man of Cavendish who's gone. Clearly he's not expecting a sprint finish for the next weekend. Now we join the action live, and I'll tell you, we have had a great hour or so of racing. Attack, attack and counter-attack. And moments ago, this is the latest league group. About the biggest daylight we've seen all day from the peloton.
Well, George Hincapie in the blue jersey there, of the most courageous rider of yesterday's stage, has been very present at the front end of the main field. Frank Schleck on the front end of the main field, the champion of Luxembourg. Hincapie in the blue jersey, very happy to try and find himself a breakaway. Peter Weening of Team Rabobank. This is a serious move, Phil.
It is indeed. The champion of Switzerland is here. Marcus Zerberg. Christian van der Velde is here. We'll just maybe see his number go through in a moment. 168 is Chris Baldwin of Rock Racing. They've been in every move today. The AG2R rider, just trying to pick him out there, I think is Nocentini, who's in the group at the moment. We'll check that for you in a moment. There's Zerberg at the back, just behind Christian van der Velde.
Well, this is a serious move on a day like this, and everybody has been trying to find at least some kind of a gap over the front end of the main field. Number 21 is confirmed in there as being George Hincapie. Christian van der Velde is in there. Adi Engels is now in there for Team Rabobank. Peter Weening is in there, as well as Ronaldo Nocentini. A bit further back, number 168 is in there as well, and that's Chris Baldwin of Rock Racing.
A few times early today, they've been given this amount of real estate, but then the peloton driven by Astana has brought them back. Levi Leipheimer knew going into today that they would have to be attentive, and so far they have been. When we come back, we're going to continue to bring you the climb up to Mill Creek Summit. It's the big whopper of the day. Will the breakaway artists continue to build their lead? The Amgen Tour of California welcomed Pasadena to its list of host cities last year. It turned out to be a cold, wet ride for the riders. As they closed in on the finish, it looked like it might be American Tom Zerbel's day, as he carried a 15-second lead into the final 6 circuits around the Rose Bowl. But the veteran, George Hincapie, would not be denied. He battled through a downpour and bad visibility to win the final leg of the race. The overall title again went to Levi Leipheimer, with David Millar and Christian Vande Velde second and third, respectively. Tom Zerbel has already tried to factor into a number of the break attempts today. This stage from Santa Clarita to Pasadena, almost a carbon copy of what we saw, last year, but of course the weather much better this year, Phil.
Yes, and that little breakaway, they've been chased, but they're going away at the moment. Frank Schleck, George Hincapie, Martin Elmender, Peter Weening, these are all the names of the leaders. Hayden Rolston has got up there too, Marcus de Berg, Nocentini, Van der Velde, and Eddie Engels from the Netherlands. And this group, like all of the groups, Paul, is vastly under pressure, but we've had a great day of attacking cycling.
Well, this is a big group here, not really dangerous in the overall classification of the race. Get a chance to have a look at just where we are. The breakaway's at 35 miles into the race, and only half a mile behind is the main field containing all of the leaders in the top end of the overall classification. In fact, my quick glance down the overall standings, Frank Schleck is the most dangerous rider in this group alongside George Hincapie.
Well, Saxo Bank have said that they will attack today and they will attack tomorrow. Why not? They've got nothing to lose because they've got Jens Voigt. They've moved up into 4th place yesterday in the time trial, but they need big time gaps for him to win this race tomorrow. So they've got to start attacking now, and they've been doing just that. There's been a Saxo Bank rider in every move so far. We understand the group of around about 16 to 20 riders. They came out of town a little bit asleep, and they're now more than 5 minutes behind, and they will run the danger of being eliminated from the race today. The main field we're looking at here now, and I suppose the big news is the lead-out sprinter for Mark Cavendish, Mark Renshaw, abandoned after about 20 miles of racing.
Just sitting on the back there, Chris Baldwin. At the end of the day, Frank Schleck is looking for 6 minutes and 25 seconds if he's going to scare the overall classification of Levi Leipheimer, and George Hincapie is looking for almost 7 minutes.
We're sitting in the back here, Hayden Royston at the moment for the Cervelo test team. He's been pretty aggressive this year in the Tour of California, so watch out for him in a couple of weeks' time in other races, because he looks as though he's riding into some very good form. AG2R, the French squad, 2 riders up here, Nocentini and Martin Elmender. Elmender coming off a very good race in the Tour Down Under. George Hincapie, the winner of this stage, is in here too. He was down there. Is Schleck at the front. I think we thinned the group out a little bit, though.
I think the pressure of the group has seen Martin Elmender slip back into the front end of the main field. So this group, which was as many as 11 riders at one stage, Phil, has now been fine-tuned down to about 7 or 8. And that's obviously because of the pressure. They are, after all, let's not forget, on the start of this very difficult climb of the day.
Well, Weening is still here, and Nocentini, he is still here. Frank Schleck is still here, and Christian Van der Velde, no trouble there. There he goes through, the man that was 4th in the Tour de France last year. What a brilliant performance that was. Now looking for good form. Chris Baldwin is here, as we're getting a good look at all the riders setting the pace. The main field is working pretty hard behind, but they're under the control now of Astana. One of the attacks today, Craig, Lance himself came up to it.
That had to surprise more than a few people, but as you guys know, I think he was just sending a message saying, hey, we are more than willing as a team to chase down anyone and everyone that not only gets away, but we'll be some instigators of our own out on the road. But it's incredible, aren't these pictures, to visually remind us that as warm as we are here in Pasadena, guys, there's snow up in the mountains still.
There is snow at the mountain peaks, but at least the roads are completely clear here this afternoon. I think all of a sudden the race has tipped once again tactically to the advantage of Team Astana, because although we're looking at names in that leading group of men who we see ride the Tour de France in the month of July, Frank Schleck, Hincapie, Van der Velde, Royston, Peter Weening, all of those names, they are, however, an awful long way down in the overall classification. Frank Schleck, as I said, looking for more than 6 minutes if he wants to rock the foundations of Levi Leipheimer's lead.
Well, with about 2 miles to climb to the top at the moment, just take a look at where we are here. Just half a mile a gap now. That's the biggest we've had all day, 36 miles in. We're about 2 or 3 miles from the summit of the climb. We're beginning to see the snow. The 2 riders who were dropped from the breakaway was Eddie Engels and Martin Elmender, so we're down to 8 riders now.
See the main pack now, I think, of all of a sudden they realized it was a massive first hour and a quarter of racing, because there were no hold bars at all. Everybody was going out on the attack to put Team Astana under pressure. They were never really under pressure. They had pretty much control. As you can see now, they're in full control at the front end of the main field, as now in the peloton, riders going back starting to take on board drinks and extra food, and that would be an indication that there's been a general slowing down in the peloton.
The attrition rate has been quite high throughout these 8 days of racing, only one to go. Johan Bruneel from Astana was speaking this morning with reporters, saying he absolutely expected all these teams to test the Astana squad. As much as Astana admits and the other teams may say in public that they are the strongest team, these teams have something to prove as well. Still a lot more real estate to cover, including the summit of Mill Creek.
Well, at Mill Creek, I think once the riders get to the summit there, they can breathe a sigh of relief for a little while. That climb comes halfway through the course at just on 40 miles on this 89-mile race this afternoon. But after that, it's not completely flat and not completely downhill all the way to Pasadena, because there's a nasty little false flat halfway down the descent, which may well put one or two riders into difficulty. And of course, the finishing circuit around the Rose Bowl here is certainly a testing one.
Now looking down here, there's the three riders who have dropped. Add on there, Marcus Zerberg, the champion of Switzerland, also has fallen back from the lead group now, leaving just 7 men up front. And they're looking pretty solid now. This is the biggest lead they've prized open since the race started. One attack after another. They are actually being dropped from the peloton as we speak as well. So this has been a hard start to a Saturday in South California, because there's the full lineup for you now. Frank Schleck, Peter Weeningham, Nocentini, Christian van der Velde, Chris Baldwin, George Hincapie, Hayden Rulston. That is the breakaway now. Some big names there, good workers. It's got a chance, this one, I think, to move clear.
Certainly has. 1 minute and 25 seconds is the new advantage coming through there. As I said earlier, Phil, Frank Schleck is the best placed rider in that leading group at 19th, and he is looking for 6 minutes and 25 seconds at the end of the day. They're trying to keep themselves organised. A little chat there going along there, as you can see to George Hincapie just looking over his shoulder to give an indication. And the rider from AG2R in that group, Phil, he's actually claiming he doesn't want to work in the group because his teammate Elmiger is just a little bit further back. But I think that's just a pretty good excuse.
Well, it's a good excuse because he was here and he had a choice of staying or falling back. He chose to fall back, and a little bit surprised, but he might have felt it wasn't going anywhere. These boys at least should stay clear now for the top of the climb. That'll take the pressure off Francisco Mancebo, who is the leader in the Californian Tourism King of the Mountains. 1
kilometre to go to the summit of the King of the Mountains, yes, and that will take a lot of pressure off Mancebo's shoulders. Christian van der Velde, I think, just having a little test here this afternoon. He rode a solid individual time trial yesterday. He claims to be a little bit behind in his form, but after all, let's not forget this season, I think, with his great performance last year in the Tour de France, finishing 4th overall, he will be basing his season, I think, this year on a good ride in the Grand Tour in July.
Well, he's warmed to the occasion, hasn't he? Because he came here a little undertrained because of the addition to the family. So a few sleepless nights, no doubt, and a lot of pleasurable celebrating. Now it's time to get down to being a pro cyclist again. So he's had to ride himself into the Tour of California this week. And on this final weekend, he's joined the leaders. Very difficult day to find which of these breakaways might succeed. We've had so many splits. Christian may have landed the good one here as they come up towards the summit of Mill Creek.
One of the very famous fans, a big hair cycling fan on the left-hand side of the road. He actually also seems to be getting fitter as the race goes on.
He is finding form.
He does indeed. Well, with all these summits, without a doubt, he's going to not only be working that altitude training, but certainly running along those cyclists. More fans, as you see in any bike race. It's great to see the fans showing out throughout these stages. The snow melt coming from left to right, going down the road, but these riders, no problem there. Let's talk a little bit more what you said earlier, Phil, with the fact that Mark Renshaw has now abandoned the race. How much is that going to affect Columbia High Road if they do all come together at the end?
Well, someone like Renshaw they could need anyway. He's not just a lead-out man for Mark Cavendish. So it's a man down, isn't it? They've now got 2 men down. That's not easy for Michael Rogers now if it gets a bit tough on the finishing circuit. Once we get down onto that circuit, 5 laps. They're short laps. They're very difficult laps. They start at 22 miles still to race into the stage. That could split this field into pieces today.
Craig, I have to say, the spectators here in California seem to be a lot fitter and on average than most of the spectators anywhere else in the world.
I'm not sure what you're trying to say with that, but they all look good. Look at this, parting like you would see the seas part up any of the famous European climbs. The fans have turned out in force, almost to the top of Mill Creek Summit, and the long line being led out at the moment by Chris Baldwin.
Yeah, Baldwin, Royalston, Hincapie, Weaning is looking like the order over the summit there, and nobody really interested because the points don't make much to them. Time to have a read of the paper now for Nocentini. No, decided up his jumper because we're now on the descent. The ice winds will rip through that racing jersey, so newspaper, believe it or not, despite all the modern clothing we get, newspaper still works to protect you from the chill.
This is the chase group of 3 riders coming through over the top, with 3 riders who are left behind by that leading group. And a little bit further down the slopes, here is the main field. And I would hazard a guess that by the time they get to the top, they'll be looking for probably close to 2 or 2.5 minutes. Still no main danger for Team Astana. That's Jaroslav Popovic sitting on the front of the bunch.
Yes, this, I think, is the shakeout breakaway. There's been a lot of combinations today, and at one stage I thought they would never get a breakaway away. This looks like the one now Aston decided can have its head for a while at least, and then it'll be up to the others to try and bring it back. No one dangerous, Paul Sherwen said. Best man is Frank Schleck in that front group. Unlikely he'll get all of his lost time back today.
You might just notice in the second line there, Lance Armstrong with his yellow helmet. He's battling to get his Livestrong cape, racing cape on, because he's setting himself up for what is going to be a long, cold descent. The temperature up here is not very much above around about 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, but with the acceleration and the speed on the descent of speeds approaching 50 miles an hour, you will find it a lot colder than that because of the chill factor.
How much do you feel it though, Paul? I know Phil mentioned putting the newspapers in to combat the chill, but as you're going along, do you really start to feel the cold?
Absolutely, especially on a long descent like this one, because bear in mind that they will be descending off this mountain at fairly high speeds of about 50 miles an hour for anything up to 20-25 minutes. This, as we get a chance to have a look, I think will probably be the leading group, and there you could see they were in excess of 45 miles an hour.
You were right, Paul, about 2 minutes, a minute 55 seconds as the peloton crests Mill Creek Summit, so a comfortable margin. No one really in trouble in that peloton, of course, because the guys that are in front, it's Frank Schleck, 6 minutes and 25 seconds behind. Levi Leipheimer in the chase for that gold jersey. Leipheimer in control, as is his team, but the breakaway artists of 7 are also going after it. Lance Armstrong taking a moment to stretch. The reason being he's waiting for a change. It looks like, yes, it's his flat tire. Probably just a flat that enables the mechanic to come on in. Gives Lance a chance to disrobe. You see where Lance is sitting overall on GC, minute 46. He lost a minute and 15 of that on the time trial yesterday. He said it's exactly where he would expect to be in his first true time trial in over 3 years. Now he gets a chance to visit with the guys from Saxo Bank, saying, yeah, everything's good. Saying hello there. Calm and confident Lance Armstrong out in front. It is a group of 10 men. Finally, after constant attacks, we go back to the Astana team car. Number 5, Steve Morabito, the Swiss rider, working in conjunction with Lance and Popo and everyone involved with that Astana squad, including Chris Horner and, of course, Levi Leipheimer. Shout out to Versus there, the man with the antlers running as best he can to keep up with these 10, but it has been a long time out in front for them now. They crossed Mill Creek Summit as a group of 7, and then the 3 that got dropped on the way up were able to join in there. George Hincapie's in there, number 21 from Columbia High Road. Frank Schleck from Saxo Bank in there. Christian Vandevelde is there as well from Garmin Slipstream. Those 10 are trying to build on their lead. Out on the road, many bikes to choose from. Bob Roll, however, caught up with the guys from Shimano, who are always at the cutting edge of technology.
Shimano Dura Ace is the standard by which all component Gruppos are judged. New for this year is the 7900 Gruppo. There's 2 different types.
Where did he come from?
A phenomenal performance.
There's the mechanical, used in this case by Mark Cavendish on his sprinting machine, and the electronic, used by George Hincapie. Although the framework is the same, there's some very significant changes to the electronic Gruppo. Mainly, the front and rear derailleurs, and of course the shift mechanisms appear on the brake lever. However, there's 2 parts that stay the same throughout that form the framework of the component Gruppo, and that's the asymmetrical chain and the chain rings. The chain ring's hollow. That allows for a very stiff and accurate shifting chain ring setup. Of course, the components that allow the electronic grupo to work are the rear derailleur, the front derailleur, the battery pack, and the shift levers. It's all done right here by a touch of these two buttons on the cassette and these two buttons on the chain ring. The main advantage, especially on a climb, is going from the small ring to the big ring, and you can do that with the electronic grupo under full power without hesitating for a moment. That allows you an advantage going over the top of each climb, get it in that big chain ring, and start flying down the descent.
George Hincapie flying down the mountain at the moment. There is that grupo that Bob was just talking about, that electronic DI2 grupo that Shimano provides. And obviously, if it works for George Hincapie, it can work for you too. George wearing the Amgen Breakaway from Cancer Most Courageous Rider jersey. He was awarded that at the end of yesterday's stage in Solvang. One of 10 members of this breakaway. This is exactly what George tried to pull off in last year's edition of this stage. And not only did he try, but he did. George Hincapie trying to defend this stage win a year later. The Columbia High Road rider has been helping his team all week. Perhaps today it's a chance for individual glory. Fast descent coming into Pasadena. The leaders still a group of 10 reaching upwards of 40 to 50 miles an hour. Stage number 7 started in Santa Clarita. They'll have 5 finishing circuits of about 5 miles each. Once they make it into Pasadena, we now go to the back of the pack, and oh, it looks as someone's gone down. And that looks like it's Francisco Mancebo. It is, wearing the California Travel and Tourism King of the Mountain jersey, but he has stopped. His bike goes flying further down the mountain. Obviously in a lot of pain, being attended to by the race staff. Mancebo, of course, was hoping to keep that jersey all the way into Escondido tomorrow, but that is never a good sign when you can barely move. But very attentive by our medical staff at the moment. We have another look, but off there in the distance, his bike just keeps on rolling downhill. And we talked about how Astana was going to have to be attentive throughout the day. It's the same for anyone out on the road. These are the leaders at the moment. That's George Hincapie and the Amgen Breakaway from Cancer jersey, his Most Courageous Rider today, just pulling back from Rabobank. Peter Weening has been up in the mix all day long. Rock Racing's Chris Baldwin takes a turn at the front, as do the 2 men from AG2R, Rinaldo Nocentini, as well as Martin Elmiger. That's a high-powered group, a lot of potential in that breakaway group. 3 minutes and 20-plus seconds now to the peloton, led by the Astana group. Astana has pretty much been controlling the peloton for the past week. That is what falls to them as the responsibility of the team of the man wearing yellow. But, you know, breakaways are a way of life out on many stages here, not just in the Tour of California, but in any stage race. But the breakaways get caught often, but it doesn't happen by chance. Paul Sherwen explains there's a science to it all.
One of the more perplexing reoccurrences of professional cycling can be summarized in 2 words: the catch. It's not so amazing that it occurs, really, but what is amazing is the precision in which it is executed and the fact that it usually spawns a heroic effort. The catch, with a capital C, can be defined as the breakaway group that should get to the finish line ahead of the main group of riders, but is engulfed in the final kilometers of a stage. There are a few constant rules when it comes to the catch. The first is there should be no more than 10 riders in a breakaway. If the breakaway group is too big and works well, they can ride more efficiently and bring their average speed up to the point where they cannot be matched by the chasing group. Next, the gap should not be allowed to exceed 10 minutes during the stage. That greatly complicates the calculations that the chasing group have to contend with. If either time or distance grows too large, chaos enters the calculations and the chase group is beaten psychologically. The catch begins with just over an hour to go, when the teams of the sprinters replace the teams of the overall favourites at the front end of the peloton. What's happening is that the guys vying for the overall classification and the yellow jersey feel comfortable relinquishing their control. The sprinters' teams elevate the speed of the chasing group to up to 30 miles an hour. In the last hour of the race, a chasing group can ride 5 miles an hour faster than the lead group, which is 5 miles or so ahead, and the catch is inevitable. The frequency with which the catch occurs makes it no less devastating when witnessed. The reason breakaways will attempt to survive is they hope the catch calculations get messed up, which they sometimes do.
Well, is it in the cards today for the peloton or the breakaway artist? Paul Sherwen noted that they should never allow more than 10 in a breakaway. They are exactly on that number today. 10 men have been away for over an hour. One of them, Christian Vande Velde, 4th last year at the Tour de France, dropping back a little right now. You can see he's talking on the radio, so it looks as though he's calling the team car up. Who knows why? We'll get that information as best as we can, but the other team cars will go through him. Here's the Garmin Slipstream car at the moment, so Vande Velde perhaps going to make either an equipment change or a full bike change, but this is a perfect case, just like in NASCAR. The pit crew comes out. The mechanic, it's his back wheel, which is a little bit more difficult to replace than the front. But it is amazing how fast these mechanics, this is their job. High pressure situation. That was less than 10 seconds right there, gang. And Christian Vande Velde is off yet again. And he will do his best. And chances are he will catch those other 9 riders out in front. Meanwhile, for Astana, they continue to just push the pedals at the pace that they have predestined. Johan Brunel in the car telling them, all right, boys, we've probably got this in control, but eventually we're going to charge hard to bring them back. One of those leaders, compatriot George Hincapie. All the team cars packed up, joining live action. An accident involving some of the riders in the back of the peloton. Sven Tuft there on the side of the road. One of the Colavita riders being helped to the side of the road. We've talked about the speeds that these riders are hitting on the descents. Looks as though a BMC rider also in there. We're trying to get you the numbers and names of these riders as best we can, but a number of team cars having to stop. Meanwhile, the peloton pushes on, so eventually these guys are going to have to try to reconnect. The front runners, they've had smooth sailing throughout this descent down into Pasadena. Originally it was a group of 10, then up the climb to Mill Creek Summit. 3 dropped off. Those 3 were Addy Engels from Quick Step, Martin Elmiger from AG2R, and Marcus Zeberg from BMC. Again, attending to bikes on the side of the road, never a good sign, Phil.
No, unfortunately, and I'm not sure, but I think this is possibly Luis Romero here, who's left standing on the roadside. The team car's obviously too far behind, and his bike's not rideable. And we've left a lot of riders on the road this morning, which is quite strange. A few desperate men perhaps in the field. There's the field now. We're not too far away from seeing the banner for the first time in downtown Pasadena. Then there'll be 22 miles of racing on the circuits. 4:20 the gap. It's getting close to may not be catchable, this gap.
I have a feeling, Phil, that the reason the gap is swollen like that is because, in fact, Team Astana, when they heard that crash, they've slowed down a fraction, and that's why we've seen it swell up to 4 minutes and 20 seconds. This is Chris Horner on the front end of the main field, riding exceptionally well, Chris Horner here, as he's sweeping around the corner there. You could be right. This could now be getting up to the point where the breakaway is going to succeed. It's hard to organize a chase to pull back 5 minutes on a finishing circuit like this, except for the point that this is a very difficult, tough finishing circuit around the Rose Bowl in Pasadena.
But speaking of tough, Phil, I mean, the 10 in front are very tough. This is some of the best stock the Pro Peloton has to offer. So every breakaway has good riders in it, but this one is definitely formidable.
Well, I think it is, with Hincapie and Frank Schleck in there, and Christian Vande Velde clearly strong. He rejoined superbly from that flat back tyre, and a good circuit for somebody of Vande Velde's ability to get away today, and it would be a terrific result to get a stage win, because he's not been a man for the overall this week, and we didn't really expect him to be one because of the happy event back home.
Well, just looking at the front end of the peloton as they start to come around this corner, it's interesting to note that they're ripping up the pace now, Team Astana. They realize that 4 minutes and 20 seconds is a bit precarious.
Astana out on the front, one of the best pro teams in the Pro Peloton. They are stacked from top to bottom. No matter which rider you look at, there's someone to deal with. A team based around different criteria, however, its goal on the road is the same. Excel in cycling, that's Team Type 1. Another unique team invited to California this year is Team Type 1. Phil Southerland and Joe Eldridge, a pair of avid cyclists with Type 1 diabetes, created this team back in 2004. Their goal is to prove to everyone that even with diabetes, you can go on to do great things. With 45 team victories in 2008, they're well on their way.
The cycling goal is to, in the next 5 years, get a rider with diabetes and hopefully a team of diabetics into the Tour de France. Right now, I don't use diabetes as a crutch. It's kind of use it as an advantage. I think diabetes gives me an edge.
Everyone's got something to overcome, whether it's work, school, money. But if you change your attitude and change your focus and overcome that, it's going to make you stronger in other walks of life.
For Team Type 1, this year's Amgen Tour of California hasn't quite gone their way.
Well, it hasn't been the best tour for us, really. We've had crashes, illnesses, problems. I think that the wet weather and the mountains have made it a really tough week so far. You're upset if you lose 1 or 2 guys, but when you lose 4, you know, it's really devastating for the team. Our best bet's to try and make a couple of breakaways, so, you know, we'll try and make a move.
Valerie Kobzarenko from Team Type 1 tried desperately to get in one of those breaks early on, but they were brought back by Astana. Tough day if you only have 50% of your squad, as Team Type 1 does, but cycling as a whole, great sport to bring exposure and awareness to a variety of causes in Type 1 diabetes. They have a great cause, and Team Type 1 has a clear mission. The 10 in front, AG2R, they have the numbers game in their favor. 2 out of those 10, 20% of that group are made up of their squad, but the big men, in fact, as we've talked about, Christian Vande Velde, George Hincapie, Frank Schleck, Peter Weening, those are the ones who have the biggest palmares in this group. But if they continue to work together, now they are coming through for the first time. This is where we are, the finishing area. So when they cross the finish line, they will have 5 circuits to go. They'll take 1 sprint bonus right here at the finish line. And then after that, those 5 circuits of 4.7 miles. So it becomes a game of cat and mouse. The 10 out in front have over a 4-minute advantage. Couple days left to log on to versus.com/TOC Fantasy and pick up your chance to go in and join that gang. Well, we take a look now coming through. The group goes through that finishing area the first time. That is the peloton. They are over 4 minutes behind, led by Astana, and they now will continue to pressure and close that gap. Astana, oh so good at knowing exactly how much time they have to make up with 20 miles to go.
Well, we're just looking here at the breakaway, at the chasers rather, really working hard. They've just gone through the finishing line. They're climbing away. This is the official point for grab your bottles and keep going, and then over the top. The breakaway themselves now know they have a chance, because the official gap at the line was 4 minutes. I made it 4 minutes 7. Every second might count, and if they can now get themselves together, they've got a chance to stay away. They've got 5 circuits at Pasadena, not flat circuits, but really good racing circuits.
Yeah, racing around the very famous Rose Bowl Stadium here, right in the heart of Pasadena, which we mentioned earlier had been used for such great events as the Super Bowl, but it also hosted the 1932 and 1984 Olympics, and I think on that occasion it was used for the football at the Olympic Games, and that's where it's amazing to see. I have to say, Craig, that it looks to me as if there are so many people on the side of the road, we could fill the Rose Bowl 3 times.
You're right, about 3 times. Seats
That's
close.
Why we're finishing on the outside, though.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
To 100,000. It's where the UCLA Bruins play their collegiate football games during the fall season here. Of course, the big schools in Los Angeles, UCLA and USC, a great crosstown rivalry that they always have. And speaking of rivalries, we've got a number of them out on the road. Astana doing their best to prove they are the patrons of the peloton in terms of team, and they've done it so all week long, Phil. Every chance they've had to bring down a break, they've timed it with perfection.
It's a professional race at professional level, just like in Europe here now. The top team, if they get the leader on it, they take control if they have the strength in depth. And any team Armstrong's ridden on has always had that strength in depth. We're looking here at Christian Vande Velde here, who was an absolute sensation in the Tour de France last year. He finished 4th overall in the end. He's now showing his legs at the start of the 2009 season today. He looks very cool. Yes, he's lost 7 minutes so far this week, but that's not important at the moment.
I think what's exciting is the way he managed to ride back into the group after a flat tire.
With the 10 out in front, and we see the spectators along the side of the roads. As we said yesterday, we're not too far away from Hollywood, so you would expect a few actors who are fans of cycling to come out. Bob Roll had a chance to catch up with actor Luke Wilson.
I'm here with Luke Wilson, and there's some very strong parallels between bike racing and the fight against cancer. And could you explain some of those and the Stand Up to Cancer foundation that you're a part of?
Well, I think the parallels are that, what a team effort it is. I mean, it, of course, comes down to the individual. But, to fight cancer and to help people that have cancer, it takes a real team, not only family, but doctors and nurses and the researchers that are always, like, each day finding new ways to fight against it. And so, I mean, that to me is the parallel, is what a kind of team effort it is. And then Stand Up to Cancer is just a great charity and foundation that does so much in terms of, finding funding for research, and also just helping people and the families and friends of the people that are affected by it.
We talked earlier about Team Type 1 and their clear mission. Well, it is great that Amgen is bringing all these cancer missions together in 1 week, bringing notice to all of them. Great to have Luke Wilson here. Of course, he's an actor known for movies like Old School, Blades of Glory, one that my kids love called Hoot. And you can bet he'll be hooting and hollering to get those guys across the line as fast as they can, so the party can begin here in Pasadena for one man and at least one team. Still 9 teams with a chance in this breakaway. AG2R, the only one with 2. The other ones, including Saxo Bank, Columbia High Road, Galarman Slipstream, and Rabobank. Still a lot of cards to play off the front. The big engines of the men in the breakaway continuing to charge ahead. Astana doing their best in the peloton to bring it back. That's Big George Hincapie from Columbia High Road taking a turn at the front. They are coming through the finishing arch. That means they will have 4 laps of this circuit to go until we have an official winner of stage number 7. 4.7 miles in length. And as we have already said, this is not a clear-cut course that they have to go through. It's very trying indeed, but as you can expect, there are plenty of bikes for professional teams to choose from in the peloton. Bob Roll educates us on some options.
New to the Amgen Tour California this year is bicycle manufacturer BH from Spain. They've been in the business for 100 years, but brand new to the United States, just being imported in the last couple of years. A couple of interesting technological developments on this frame used by the AG2R riders, starting with the integrated seat mast. A part of the seat tube and the top tube provides a very stiff frame. Also unique to the BH bike is 90 millimeters of adjustment, so you don't have to cut the mast down to get the right seat height. Nanotechnology used throughout the frame provides a platform that's only 865 grams, easily within the 15-pound UCI limit. Also unique to this bike, the cable routing and the tube's got an indentation here, makes it very aerodynamic, and also beefs up this tube a little bit, so it has great power transmission. There's some components on here from manufacturer FSA, starting with the cranks, the brake calipers, and the cockpit, the bar and stems. For the racers, you couldn't ask for a better bicycle, but perhaps for the consumers, the best part, lifetime guarantee.
Absolutely, a lifetime guarantee. How can you go wrong? And as Bob mentioned, the AG2R La Mondiale team using it today. Number 73 is Martin Elmiger. He's using that as his steed on the streets of Pasadena.
Well, I think it had to come. That's a great move by Marcus de Berg. And if I remember, the attacks we had last year went in almost the identical position on this circuit, but it was raining badly last time. These are the leaders coming around to complete their first circuit. 3 minutes has gone by at the moment.
Well, I did tell you that Marcus de Berg doesn't win very many professional bike races. He's won 19 since he turned professional back in 1996. However, they have always been big bike races because he's a very clever tactician.
Well, once they get up to the line here, the clock will stop again. They have taken time back in front of this marvellous crowd, but they haven't taken it all back just yet. So we pull back here. The field goes on about 3:25, the gap now.
Well, it's going in the right direction for these riders. 4 laps now remaining, but the pressure is all being done by Team Astana. And I think, Phil, the fact that Team Astana are doing all the pacemaking will be an indication that maybe on this occasion the sprinters have said, nah, we are not going to help ourselves to the catch today.
I still can't see a low. It's all bound to Astana. They are closing the gap by by just almost by default at the moment, because there's nobody here can chase that group. There's too many strong teams up front, and there's no reason why Astana will want to catch them. So there's a big chance here now for somebody up front to go for gold.
No, that's absolutely right. There is hardly any firepower left in here to chase who isn't represented in that leading group of 10.
And speaking of that front group of 10, it was Marcus Zaberg who tried to get off in front, and now they are all back together again, it looks like. Jonathan Vaughters, director of Garmin Slipstream, is going to join us after the break. We'll be able to ask him some questions about his team's performance last year and looking forward into 2009. Here in Pasadena, the breakaway no longer content to stay a group of 10. 5 have broken away, including Frank Schleck and Big George Hincapie.
Well, look at this breakaway now. Schleck has come up. It was started really by Roberto Nocentini, and he's been joined by George Hincapie.
That's right. The formidable force of this 5-man breakaway still very much intact. We welcome into the booth Jonathan Vaughters, director of Garmin Slipstream. Jonathan, thanks for taking the time out for us today. So who gave the initial directive to send Christian in this break?
Well, we had a talk this morning about you know, basically we were just going to send as many guys as we could in the break, other than Zabriskie, obviously. And, you know, and it appeared that Christian was probably just the strongest guy there, although I kind of feel like I need to be back in the car yelling at him right now, because he seems to have missed this little split here.
How surprised were you in that first hour and a half that so many attacks were brought back by the peloton?
Well, you know, that's the way racing goes. As the race progresses later into a stage race, you know, the first couple days you'll have 1 or 2 guys and everyone just sort of lets them go because everyone's thinking of the whole of the race. But once you get to the, you know, the 7th stage, most of these teams have absolutely nothing to lose. They only have everything to gain. So all of a sudden, as opposed to maybe 10 guys trying to break away and get in an early breakaway, you've got 60 guys trying to break away and get an early break. And that's why you saw such an aggressive race early on.
John, I have to say you were pretty much instrumental in predicting a good ride yesterday by Dave Zabriskie. Were you happy to see the way he rode, or a little bit sad that he didn't actually get in front of Levi?
Yeah, I really thought that Dave was going to win this stage. I didn't think he was going to be able to pull back 28 seconds on Levi as far as the overall, but I did think he was going to win the stage just from what we've seen from Dave in training recently. And you know, it didn't quite work out that way, but you know, but we were pleased with his ride.
I was going to say he looked absolutely spent when he came across the line. Was he pleased with the effort other than perhaps the result?
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, we did everything we could to you know, to produce that ride. I mean, he's had a great winter of training. We had a great training camp. I mean, we really did nail down all the details, and he really came up with the perfect ride. There just happened to be one rider that was better than him on the day.
Yeah, you saw the way this breakaway unfolded, and sadly you weren't in the car to direct as it unfolded. Are you a little bit surprised that Christian actually missed out on this split? Because when you look at Hincapie to me would have been a man to keep a match on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know exactly why he didn't mark him. I mean, obviously you can see that it's sort of split into 5 and 5, and it seems like the stronger 5 riders are in front. And normally Christian's a pretty tactically astute rider. I'm not sure. Maybe he was just a little bit cooked from having to chase back on after that flat tire.
But a nicer question, though. What about the crowds here in the Amgen Tour of California this year? Because they have been absolutely phenomenal, haven't they?
Yeah, it's been a great race. I mean, especially since the weather warmed up, the crowds have come out in force. I mean, you could tell that was going to happen because the days where it was rainy, there were still massive crowds. And, you know, if people are coming out when it's 40 degrees and pouring rain, then when it's sunny like this, you know they're going to come out in force.
John, I've read a couple things in the offseason about how much work you've put into Tom Danielson and the improvements that you've seen towards the end of last year and expect to see from him this year. Where is he mentally and physically right now? Because he looks like he's in good form so far this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's pretty excited about tomorrow. It's, you know, first big mountain of the year. You know, I don't know that he's going to be able to, you know, get away from Levi and pull back 3 minutes or whatever it is, but I think Tom is really looking forward to, you know, getting into the big mountains of the big tours later on. And he's, you know, it's been a nice project for me because, you know, he hasn't had a good season in a couple of years, and to, you know, to pull a talented rider back around and to really work with him to start fulfilling his potential has been a really fun project for me.
Let's talk about another Tom on your team, Tom Peterson. You've said that he's one of your protégés as well. You had to be so excited for him a few days ago.
Yeah, Tom's someone who who turned pro with us way back when we were just a little team, and I've worked with him since day one. He was a junior national champion way back in 2004, but a very, very quiet person and wasn't necessarily garnering a lot of attention. And he's someone who I, picked and really like and really get along with, and he's a very, very intelligent writer. If you ever want to see his blog, he's an incredible blogger, really intelligent writer, really good kid. And more than anything else, the reason I was so happy to see him win is that he maybe isn't the massive talent of some of the wonderkins that come along, but what he is someone who's willing to work harder and be more disciplined than really anyone I've seen in pro cycling.
Yeah, Jonathan, these guys put me on the spot every day to try and figure out what is going to happen on the run-in towards the finish, and it's always my responsibility to predict whether or not the breakaway is going to get caught. I have my own feeling, but I'm going to ask you, do you think the breakaway will survive today?
I think it will, yeah. I mean,
why do you want to agree with me?
Well, because basically, if you look, Colombia obviously isn't going to want to pull it back. Astana just wants to get it to 2 minutes or thereabouts. I don't know the motivation is there to pull it all the way back.
No, I think you're quite right there. There's
Yvonne and Bob Leipheimer there, Levi's parents. Guys, they've had a pretty good week, don't you think, Paul?
Oh, absolutely. They've enjoyed it. They had a little bit of a tough start to the week because they had to drive down from Montana, and I have to say that the weather was not exactly the best for taking a camping car across country.
The 5 in front continue to work ahead. Jonathan, thank you very much for being with us. Maybe we'll get a chance to get back out to that team car.
Yeah, I need to. The thing I'm really hoping for here is if Christian can just stay out in front a little ways, we might actually take over the team classification from Astana. So even though I don't think he's going to win the stage at this point, I have my fingers crossed on a consolation prize.
All right, the great thing about cycling is there is always a goal out on the road. The 5 in front, Schleck, Hincapie, Nocentini, Ralston, and Zaberg. Now it's up to them to see who will be willing to work the longest and leave it for that final sprint at the line. Last year, Tom Zerbel tried to get away from a break similar to this, and it was George Hincapie who had the final say in it all. Astana, meanwhile, as Jonathan Vaughters just mentioned, they're more than happy just to keep the gap at a reasonable distance and keep Levi in yellow. George Hincapie moving to the front right there, but he peels off almost as quickly, allowing Peter Weening from Rabobank to take the lead. Big George, of course, was on all the teams when Lance Armstrong won the Tour de France. George Hincapie has also won a fair few stages in his own right, including last year, the final stage of the 2008 Amgen Tour of California. The weather, well, it was a little less hospitable last year, but George was able to make that final big burst. Columbia High Road rider, who is really the heart and soul of this Columbia High Road team, able to raise his arms in victory. And once again, George Hincapie adds something to his palmares. And there he is again wearing the Amgen Breakaway from Cancer Most Courageous Rider jersey. George would love nothing more than to double down and win 2 years in a row in Pasadena.
As we're looking down through the trees here, Hincapie is under control. He would be my bet to repeat on last year, but every time somebody gets away, somebody else crawls back with the rest of them. Frank Schleck also a danger. Weening, I would have expected to make a bid by now. Van der Velde seems to be patching all of the time.
Well, as confident as I was that this breakaway was going to survive, I'm actually starting to be concerned, because once a group like this starts to maneuver left and right, they lose all of their impetus and their average speed drops down quite dramatically. And next time we get a time check, it may well scare these riders in this leading group of 10.
Well, it was an impressive job, wasn't it, Phil, by the 5 who were behind, including Christian Van der Velde, to claw their way back up to the front group. But as Paul just mentioned, if their gamesmanship continues, Astana, who has just been a driving force at the front of the peloton, they come through the finishing arch. And again, you can see the speed there, our speedometer clocking them at about 38 miles an hour.
Well, the maximum they went through was at 40, and that's obviously going to be a lot quicker once we get down to the sprint at the end. But the impetus has definitely gone out of the breakaway.
Well, 2 laps to go. Clocks are running again. Last time it was 3:20 on the main field. Van der Velde's bunch were riding 10 seconds behind Hincapie's bunch. It was the effort of Van der Velde which brought them all together again. Now, this is the little springboard. Here we go. High diving time again. Once you climb this little
Watch
climb,
out for
this
Frank
is where
Schleck.
they will go. And this time it looks like it's the King of Luxembourg having a dig.
Well, you just saw him placing himself there. He came up round the outside to see whether or not he was going to get the advantage. Settled down halfway through the group, had a look at everybody else, and bang, went straight over the top.
Now, that's how you put an attack in, Craig.
That's a way to send a message, isn't it? It looks as though the other 9 are just wondered, what do we do now? Meanwhile, Schleck, with his head down, has just opened up a massive gap, Paul.
Well, that is a solid move. When you make a move like that, an attack like that, it's not a question of holding back 10%. You've got to give it 110%. This is one of those do-or-die efforts, and you've got to open up the gap immediately, because when you get that 20-second gap jump on the rest of the field, psychologically, it's a real slap in the face for the guys who are with you.
Well, this time, the boys at the back are in desperate trouble. The ones who saw him go are going to have to react very, very quickly. You cannot give this man that sort of a lead. Looking at Schleck there, the Luxembourgeois, as he starts now to race on his own. He's going to pay for that effort for a couple of kilometres, because that was a superhuman effort. He wanted to break the spirit in one. I think he's possibly done that. They will have to pick up the pace steadily but surely. He's got to now get a grip of himself, bring the heart down a bit, and concentrate on holding a steady pace.
Well, of all the guys in that leading group of 10, the 2 guys I felt had the best looking pair of legs were Frank Schleck and George Hincapie. Hincapie will be kicking himself that he's missed that move. He made a big effort to go with the first move when it split into 5 and 5. And if we just have a quick look, just watch this, the way he positions himself on the left-hand side, coming up alongside the riders, up into 3rd or 4th position. He could see that nobody has got an eye across to him, so he cuts straight across through the inside, the steepest part of the climb there, and they all move across to say, oh, I don't want to follow that one.
Normally, and he attacked so deep into the break. Normally 2nd or 3rd wheel would be good, but he went right from the back. He showed everybody the move, and they weren't willing to chase them because of all the boxing that's been going on. They're all tired, let's face it. Schleck has got the gap. Oh boy, look at that. A few deep breaths required here before we get settled back in, but he's got the gap, and he comes round to the bell this lap. And no sign yet of a time check on the peloton. It's been 2 minutes 50 since we went through the finishing line.
It'll be great to find out if that gap does last and Frank Schleck wins this stage, whether that was planned a couple laps beforehand, whether it was Brad McGee coming over the radio, the director for Saxo Bank, and telling him this is a perfect place to make the move, or whether Frank Schleck, a great racing mind, of course, just decided on his own based on what he saw in that lead group.
Well, one thing's for sure, we saw Mark Cavendish in the green jersey off to the right. It's not going to be a bunch sprint today for Cav as they go through. The gap is 3 minutes 15 seconds as they race on towards with 2 laps to go for these boys. There's no way they're coming back today now. They're racing for 11th place, I reckon.
Well, if you remember, the leading group of 10, their peak when they came up the finishing straight was 40 miles an hour, going for an average of 33 to 35. So the peloton, I think, not really the peloton, but Team Astana have shut off. They're very happy with the tactical situation right now. Not concerned at all by the riders in that leading group.
It's going to be quite a leap up the overall classification, though.
Paul said more than once that usually the peloton travels at about 5 miles faster than the breakaway. Today, it is 5 miles slower. And off in front of them all, Frank Schleck, the Luxembourg road race champion, has made the biggest move of the day. Can he stay away? When we come back, we bring you the finish of stage number 7. Frank Schleck, who makes up the heart and soul of the Saxo Bank squad along with his brother Andy, put in that decisive move, and look at this. They are all back together. The group of 10 has come through, and now we are one happy breakaway.
9 riders are together. I'm going to guess the missing rider is Addy Engels. Well, I'll be wrong, because there he is, number 44. It must be Chris Baldwin, the rock racing boy, who's gone off the back.
Well, he went off the back last time there was a series of attacks like this, and he only managed to get himself back into the leading group of 10 because they slowed down a fraction. Frank Schleck gave the right move at the right time there, but obviously everybody here is grasping for a victory. You know, there's not very many people had success out of the Amgen Tour of California this year, and that's why the teams are pushing themselves themselves to try and get it all back together, because these guys know that today the breakaway is going to survive, and you don't get many days like this in a tour.
I was just going to say, Paul, how motivating is it for these teams that really haven't had any taste of success at all at the Amgen Tour California, knowing there's only a couple days left?
Well, there's only one day left, and this one is the biggest chance that they've got, because tomorrow I think is going to see a number of riders in difficulty once we go up to the high spot of the big climb of Palamo Mountain. There again, there's a move. That's Royalston going clear off the front. Now, if you give that man about a 200 or 300 meter gap, you probably won't see him again, because he's a very good individual pursuiter off the track.
He won't get 200 meters because they're right on him with Peter Weening joins first. I think it's Elminger this time, followed by George Hincapie, Addy Engels. Here we come, all back together again. Just who is going to be successful here today? Because I really thought that attack by Frank Schleck would have done it, but they've clawed the way back. There's the kilometer to the end to the lap, and then it's the bell. So it's 1 lap and 1 kilometer to go.
Well, I have to say that watch out for Nocentini, because he's the man going there on the left-hand side. He's a crafty bike rider. I've seen him do this so many times. He's got an awful lot of knowledge to make a move like this, and that's why Marcus Zuberg, who is also a great tactician, has seen that move and knows this might be the one to go clear.
And good old Hayden Royalston realises anyone can work now, and he's using those strong New Zealand legs again to try and close the gap. Weenan, he's always been my secret weapon today, has decided now to cross the gap as well. No reaction yet from Van der Velde or George Hincapie. A little bit of a surprise. About 500 metres from ending at this final, penultimate lap before we get the bell.
Well, it's always important when you come to the final stage of a race like this to make sure that if somebody goes, you've got to be onto his wheels straight away, because if you start to get a bit of wind into your face, it's hard to close down the gap. There, Nocentini sees that he's got a passenger there in the shape of Marcus Zuberg, who's trying to keep it going. Well, Royalston and Hincapie are back in the fold. They will obviously wait, I think, for that incline, because that incline is a very difficult incline. Now, if you've got the legs, you can jump across a 10 or 15 second gap just like that.
I think we'll get one more chance here to hit it, because that's all you've got as we head up to the incline. They all come together here. 1 lap to go now. There are 4 riders. Van der Velde is crossing the gap. No mistake this time for Christian. Hincapie is looking for the will to give him a lift across. He's chosen to follow Frank Schleck. It's a lap now since Schleck made his move. Maybe George will try and leap up to the leaders at the same point.
Yes, but Van der Velde went straight to the front as soon as they made the junction there. So you've got 4 new leaders at the front end of this bike race, and it's going to be very difficult to pull that group back if they all keep working. Nocentini now on the front for AG2R, Italian on a French team. He knows now that this is hit or miss time. He's got to give everything to try and break the stranglehold, but I still feel that that group of riders behind is too strong to allow these 4 men to go clear to the finish. And we've still got that next ramp, a very difficult ramp after a long stage like this of 90 miles to in fact go clear, because I tell you what, that's where they pulled it all back together last time.
Very cagey on the part of Christian Van der Velde at this point, Phil. He has sat back for a number of these laps, but as you said, he found the chance to move in front and now just sitting there right comfortably.
I think John Lavorte was right earlier. Christian was a little bit tired from what was a very fast and rapid return to the leaders from that rear wheel flat tyre, so he needed a bit of time to recover. The breakaway was disjointed. Everybody was having to go at the front. Very difficult to get into the mix, but now he's recovered, and he's cleverly read a move here, and getting a chance of a little bit of a rest also, while behind the others are chasing behind. There's 5 chasers now, 4 leaders, Baldwin in the middle, and the peloton. It's all over a 3-minute spread. There'll be nobody else coming into this race now. The winner's up in the front. Just a little chance to look at the man who's likely to win this race for a 3rd year tomorrow. He looks as though he's out for a cycling club run today. He's had a shave as well. Levi Leipheimer just nonchalantly riding along in the comfort of the slipstream of his Astana teammates. Job done for the day. No one up front endangering him with 1 day to go. Lance Armstrong enjoying life in the pack.
Super domestic there. Team Astana all over the front end of the main field. They've got the racer completely where they want it. They're not concerned at all about any of the riders in the leading group of 10 riders. Armstrong, I have to say, commendable 6th place overall. He's lost himself 1 minute and 46 seconds, but I don't think he's yet started the time trial campaign.
Wait, another attack going here on the far side of the road, and they're not gaining at all, the peloton now, by the way. As we now, Van der Velde swings to the left and breaks them. Frank Schleck takes a look. He's going to go for him. It could be Van der Velde and Schleck any second now. George realises that might be the one. So Hincapie bridges as well, and the others, Hayden Royalston, he's been very active trying to bring the rest up. There is nobody who will release anybody right now.
Hincapie being very attentive. Royalston really is a powerhouse on this circuit here. He hasn't got the big acceleration or the jump of some of the other riders. He's got a massive big turbo diesel engine in there, but once he gets it up to speed, he certainly can follow through.
What a difference in the sense of urgency here when we take a look back at the peloton coming through the finish arch. That means they will have 1 lap to go. They are on the final lap now, so everyone sits. And what's the time, Phil?
3 minutes 10 seconds, so they haven't hardly gained a second that lap. They're happy with the distance. That's how it's probably going to finish now. The winner is up there today. It was a big combination. All of the top teams with men in the move. Nobody endangering Levi Leipheimer. At last, after a week, a perfect combination to be successful in a breakaway. There's the Rose Bowl. No room for the race inside, so we're all on the outside today in the car park, waiting for the arrival of the end of the Amgen Tour of California. And there is Peter Weening. Save the best till last. We're about to find out. An opportunist Dutchman roars away. He's chased by, I think it's this time, is Elminger,
Nocentini gone again.
Nocentini gone again. Elminger's a passenger.
He's after the move this afternoon. Royalston says, no, mate, I'm going to go up against this again because he's got the firepower, and once he gets himself up to speed, he's riding across that gap. It seems to me there's a certain amount of marking going on here, Phil, between George Hincapie and Frank Schleck, and that may well be a good thing for this small group of riders, this group of 3 riders that's going to form at the front.
The spectators have lined the roads, not just here in Pasadena, but throughout the Amgen Tour of California route. We're being told that at last count, 1.7 million spectators have notched their belt, so to speak, to come here and take part in this event. And the riders have certainly been the beneficiary, and everyone watching around the world, televised live to over 90 countries throughout this week.
Well, being treated to a pretty good set of vision today. The big sadness of the day is the loss of the King of the Mountains leader, Francisco Mancebo, who crashed out on the mountains and is in Pasadena, but I'm afraid in hospital at the moment. We hope not too seriously injured. The race now winding down to its last couple of kilometres. Nocentini has really suffered his way around this course today, but he's worked hard. Royalston deserves the victory. Weening is the man that made the move. 3 clear.
Yeah, well, they seem to have lost a bit of their impetus as well, but watch out for Weening. He's looking to me as if he's trying to set himself up for another long attack away from the finish line. He's over on the right-hand side there, and if he's got the legs, and there he's got the legs, and Nocentini's lets the gap go, and that's not a clever thing to do at this stage of the game.
I think he might be playing a bit crafty here. He's making Royston take up the chase to close the gap to Peter Weening, because this time around there's no bell, there's no moving on. The line is the line, and when they see that big bridge across the road, which is black, it's the final 1,000 meters of the day. And 3 riders are just clear. They can't turn off the gas pedal because just behind us is Van der Velde, is George Hincapie, is Frank Schleck, and you bet your life they won't have given up, and Hayden knows it on the left.
You see Nocentini dancing again. He knows this is the point in the course to make sure that you go over the top of this incline with a good 20 to 30 seconds advantage. If you've got that gap, then it could be psychologically good enough to break the stranglehold of these guys trying to come back from behind. Hincapie up there in about 2nd position. He's wondering whether or not he's going to make the junction here this afternoon. Frank Schleck in about 5th place. And at 15 seconds, it is still doable for these guys, but they're going to have to work together as a solid block.
There'll be a last desperate dash from that group by somebody as they come over that 1,000-meter line, because it's the only way now they're going to bring back those boys. This could be a fairy tale for Hayden Royalston, the man at the back here in the black, who was once told to stop cycling as he was about to drop dead. He had a heart problem. They investigated him, said no, he was okay. He came back as an elite cyclist last year. He won 9 races. Now he's back on the big teams, and he's got a chance of a fairly buck return. Inside 3 kilometers to go.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, these 2 riders are very concerned about Royalston because they will know that he's got a massive turn of speed. The fact that he comes from the track, he will have done a lot of specialized track training. He rode the Olympic Games last year for New Zealand, and if they take him down to the finish line, he could really give them a good whacking in the last 300 meters.
He flicked his arm there to bring through Nocentini. I don't think he could pedal any faster. Weening also is fully committed, but Weening, I think, we might try to go again here, because I do think the man in black would pack the best finish. He's one of the few cyclists in New Zealand who have ever won an Olympic medal, and he got one in Beijing.
Yeah, that was in the team pursuit, got himself a silver place, but he also won the Madison Championships at the Oceania Games, and that gives me an idea, Phil, that he knows he can get these guys in the sprint. There's not a great deal of organization in the group at 15 seconds. You just see that the man who swung across there was Christian van der Velde, or is he about to try and launch himself a counterattack in the closing kilometers?
There'll be one more effort from that group. It's got to come. They're just hoping they can hold them close enough before they feel the time is right to try and close the gap and win the day from behind. It has got to come as we head towards 2 kilometers to go now. We have a New Zealand rider, an Italian and a Dutchman all trying to win in Pasadena, and this is the big moment that Hayden Rulston has waited for years. The man in black from Cervelo. There goes the move from the chase. Can't quite see who it is from the top of the sky. It could be Adi Engels there.
Difficult to see, I think, Phil, from 3,000 feet, but they're still starting to get themselves organized. Coming up into third place is definitely Martin Elminger. Fourth place there, in fact, is George Hincapie. It was the quick-step rider, Adi Engels, who made the move. Covered there by Christian van der Velde.
And out the front, there's the move. It's come from Rabobank. He wouldn't let it go. Hayden Rulston, a track rider, has pounced off the back of the boards here to try and reach him. Nocentini hasn't got that pure speed in his legs. He's a bit of a slow diesel to get back online here.
Well, watch out for number 76 as a very crafty rider. Hayden Rulston now has to control. He's stuck in the middle of this sandwich, an international sandwich, a Dutchman at the front, an Italian at the back. He will be listening, if he can, sort of backwards to hear whether or not he can start to feel the whistling of the acceleration of Nocentini. He will know the reputation of Nocentini, but would like to get himself into the last 200 or 300 meters in this group of 3 riders, because I reckon the Kiwi has got the makings of this one.
Oh, he's a clever boy. He's riding far left of the course, forcing the move on the right. Weaning now, comes over the top, just gives them a nudge. It's a false one, and he settles down again. The crowd now are being acted to what is almost a track finale here. Riders are finessing. They want Roylston on the front. He is known to be the fastest finisher. Roylston knows his legs are quicker than these two if he gets the right crack at it now, as he watches them as if he was riding a World Points Championship. Now it's all guns drawn as he races for the line, neck and neck with Nocentini. On the right, it's Hayden Roylston. On the left, it is Nocentini. As they hit the line, Roylston gets the win. No, he doesn't. He thinks it's the other side. What do you think, Paul?
Well, I think I'd have to look at that from a photo, Phil, because it was extremely close. It looked to me as if it was the Kiwi.
I couldn't tell.
It looked as if it was the Kiwi, but I told you, Nocentini is a very crafty bike rider. I think we need to see that either from above or from the side.
Well, there we are. If it was Nocentini, I take my hat off to him. He's not known as a rapid sprinter like that, but he hit the line far left of the picture. Rulston hit the line far right. It did look as though he's making big ground with 50 meters to go, but from the head-on shot, let's have a look, see what we can do here.
Yeah.
Well, it is, isn't it? Because although it's all blurred up,
the reason it's blurred
is AG2R.
It's because they were going so fast, but it's definitely Nocentini on the inside there has got himself the victory in the last lunge for the line.
Well, that is a terrific result for AG2R. Rinaldo Nocentini. He won one race last year, the Grand Prix Lugano, and now he's just landed what I think is a fantastic result. Probably one of his best wins of his career. In his career, he's won 11 races until today, and that's got to go down as one of the best.
Well, he timed it to perfection, and we kind of forgot there's still a race going on a little bit further back down the road, because it's still Team Astana all over the front end of the main field, because Team Astana here today basically, I think, have had a good day at the office. Nothing to panic about at 1 kilometer to go. They had a breakaway of 10 guys, have gone clear up the road, none of them really dangerous in the overall race, so they've allowed them their freedom on this occasion, because they know they need to conserve energy. They can't chase everything down, because tomorrow is another hard day in the mountains.
They did a good job of chasing the early breakaways down at the start of this stage. When they went through Mill Creek Summit, it was only about a 3.5-minute gap. Now the peloton has split up. Cervelo coming with their lead out, trying to set up Thor Hushovd.
Well, there has to be the challenge here, because Thor Hushovd is not too far away from Mark Cavendish in the race for the points. So even though there are only a small number of points available, Mark Cavendish should really come up to the front and try and get himself some points in this sprint.
As he comes up to the line then, who are looking for the green Herbalife jersey of Cavendish. I don't see it as they race up to the finish. It looks as though Hushoff is going to snatch that one on the line. That'll go to a count back then. That'll be most interesting. There is a change in the Californian Tourism King of the Mountains. That'll go to Jason McCartney tonight. Cavendish was in that group but didn't seem to bother to contest that sprint finish.
Well, he had a good buffer of 8 points at the start of the day over Tor Hushoff.
Because there were 9 riders probably in front.
Levi Leipheimer be crossed through, tapping shoulders with Lance Armstrong as well as Yaroslav Popovic, saying thanks for the work today again, guys. They safely shepherded him from Santa Clarita here into Pasadena, and after the hard work early on in the day to make sure the breakaway that got away was a suitable one, they sat back and just conserved their power as best they could. The crowds getting to see the favorites and their favorite cyclists in the world come through now. A great chance here along the Rose Bowl to see some sporting greats.
Well, there is Levi Leipheimer threading his way through the crowds, heading back to the finishing rostrum. Well, if the field did not catch Baldwin on that lap, then there was no points available in that sprint. If they caught him, there was a mere 1. So it's not going to make much difference. There's Lance Armstrong zipping up. Flat tire on the highway today. He made it routine. He's back in the bunch. Hi, everybody. I'm here in Pasadena. And he's hanging on to 6th place overall, but the more important thing is his team hang on to the team lead and the individual lead. Stage result first, Non-Centini getting the better of Rulston, winning, Marcus de Berg 4th, Martin Elmiger crossing the line in 5th place, the chase at 7 seconds. Then came Chris Baldwin, there's our answer. He was 6th, Hincapie 7th, Schleck 8th, Van der Velde 9th, Addy Engels was 10th. That was the breakaway of the day, and they survived.
The efforts of the 10 paid off huge dividends, especially for Nocentini. The Italian wins his first stage of the 2009 season, matching his total of 2008. When we come back, we're going to wrap things up from Pasadena. One final stage to go, and today it was the Italian on the left-hand side of your screen, just lunging ahead of the Kiwi. We welcome you back live on Versus. In the background is the Rose Bowl, home to Super Bowls, World Cup soccer, and now today, the finish of stage number 7 of the 2009 Amgen Tour of California. As we often think, a breakaway has a chance to stay away, and today it did. The same 10 were away from almost the first hour, and then it came down to the final finishing circuits where all of the 10 seemed to take a crack at the lead, but at the finish, it was Ronaldo Nocentini from the AG2R La Mondiale squad who won by less than half a bike length.
Photo finish caught out of focus there with the speed these boys finally came up. Watch the rider on the left then. See if he hits that line first, and he does, but the fraction of the blink of an eyelid. He knew it, and judging on the face there of Hayden Ralston, he knew he'd lost.
Yes, he certainly did. I would have given a fair amount of money to put onto the shoulders of Hayden Ralston to get that victory there, but I do know that Ronaldo Nocentini is a very clever bike rider. I've seen him win a lot of bike races using his tactical nous.
Here are the stage results again. Nocentini over Ralston. Those were the top 2. Just behind them, Peter Wiening, who was an instigator throughout those final 5 circuits. Welcome back to Pasadena. We apologize, of course, for all the breakups happening, power failures going on here. Can't give you the reason why, but gladly we can bring you pictures once again. I mentioned earlier that crowd of 1.7 million who has watched on the streets and in the towns along the Amgen Tour of California. That has set a new attendance record still with today's numbers and tomorrow's as well. That illustrates it right there, exactly how packed every stage and every finish, more particularly, has been. The jersey presentations going on the stage right now. This is what the overall standings look like with 1 day to go. Levi Leipheimer still has that 36-second lead over David Zabriskie. Michael Rogers 46 seconds back. Jens Voigt in 4th. Thomas Lokfus from Columbia High Road in 5th. 6th, Lance Armstrong at 146 back. What a great week of racing it has been for him. And the man who's wearing the best young riders jersey here, Robert Gessing, is in 7th. Astana, of course, well represented in that top 10 due to the strength of the team they have brought here. That has given Levi Leipheimer the confidence he has need to go off at will, knowing that he has the strongest team on the road, as he says, to back him up at any given moment. So For the 5th day, Levi Leipheimer puts on the yellow jersey here at the Amgen Tour of California. Only one more day to go. 24 hours from now, chances are high that he will win for the 3rd year in a row here in California.
Well, the crowd there now waiting to see the final line of leaders on the board. Craig, back to you.
Well, let's send it down to Bob Roll, who once again is sitting with the overall leader, Levi Leipheimer.
Levi Leipheimer, another day in the yellow jersey. The team had to do a tremendous amount of work, though. When the breakaway went up, how disorganized was the chase for a while, but then it started to settle down a little bit in the finale.
Yeah, it was a hard start. I mean, it's 2 days to go, and everybody's coming out. They're trying to get their stage win, trying to get their piece of the pie, and no one's holding anything back. So it was tough. But I tell you, the strength of this team is awesome. I mean, they can ride on the front all day, and then it's, you know, the gap's like 4 minutes 20. Oh, hey guys, we got to speed up, and they do. And then it's like, whoa, not so much. You know, back it off. I mean, it's incredible. So I just hope that, you know, they left a little bit in the tank for tomorrow, and one more day.
One more day. Lance Armstrong, a flat tire. It didn't seem to slow you guys down too much, though.
No, he was really quick getting that tire fixed. I got to say, it didn't slow us down at all.
And tomorrow, a pretty hard stage. What are you looking forward to?
Well, it's definitely going to be broken up, and you know, I expect that some of my teammates will have to do a lot of work early, and then I'll have to rely on guys like Lance, Yanni, Chechu. I mean, it's going to be a big battle for sure.
Well, best of luck, Levi. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
No illusions, Paul. Does he have? Levi, he knows exactly that those attacks are going to come with force tomorrow.
Oh, they certainly will. I mean, we've got, with less than 8 kilometers into the race, the first small King of the Mountains, another one after 30 kilometers, then, of course, the big high spot of this year's Amgen Tour of California, which is a lot steeper than anything we've been up so far. The climb up to the summit of Palomar Mountain, 1,500 meters, or 5,100 feet of climbing, and there will be some casualties tomorrow. A lot of the sprinters will be looking at the race book tonight thinking, uh-oh, how am I going to get over that?
The other thing, Phil, that they could contend with, we're being told the rain is going to hold off, but with the front perhaps moving in, the crosswinds actually up in those mountains are going to be quite hard to deal with as well.
Oh, yes. I mean, the local cyclists are in awe of the mountain, and they can't wait to see these boys attempt it at the way they know they're going to have to climb it. That's very, very quickly. It is a steep and vicious climb. At the end of the day, we're going to see Leipheimer have to take at some stage control of the race himself. He is the race winner, and he'll be left with a few teammates maybe. But I don't see anybody with the legs now to really hit him hard enough for him to lose the race.
Well, I think he said it himself, the team. He has got basically one of the best teams, if not the best team in the world when it comes to riding stage races. And we watched them here this afternoon. They accelerated and de-accelerated any way they wanted to. They had that race completely and utterly under control. However, tomorrow may be a different ball game because he will lose a number of teammates, I feel, on the big climb of the day, and that may well put him under pressure. That's why we saw Frank Schleck go on the attack today. Maybe that's why we saw George Hincapie go on the attack today, to put a bit of pressure onto Team Astana to weaken them for the final day.
To try to soften them up as they head up Palomar, even though it's a long way to the finish off of Palomar. Palomar, often called the Alpe d'Huez of Southern California. Very similar, 21 bends, just like the famous mountain in France. These are your stage results, as we just saw Ronaldo Nocentini on the podium along with Hayden Ralston and Peter Weening. Marcus Seberg again was in 4th. Martin Elminger able to come across in 5th.
A good breakaway at last, getting the right combination. Engels yo-yoed all day, but he came home in 10th place with a breakaway of 10. And the peloton finishing about 3 minutes behind at the end of the day and conceding nothing as far as they were concerned in the overall.
Record crowds here at the Amgen Tour of California. In the 4-year history of this race, there has never been more people come and see it. That crowd illustrates the point. Everyone wants to come and see a stage of this race, and we still have tomorrow to go. For the first time ever, we're going to travel south into San Diego County, Rancho Bernardo to Escondido. If you can get down there, I highly recommend you come and watch on the roads. It is not going to be something you want to miss. Christian Vandevelde being awarded the Amgen Breakaway from Cancer Most Courageous Riders jersey today, and for good reason. He was on, it seemed like, most of those attacks and able to respond throughout the day once that breakaway had gone. As I mentioned, tomorrow we start in Rancho Bernardo. We head north and make that great loop that contains Mount Palomar, and then they head southwest again into Escondido. But it's the fourth climb of the day. Lance Armstrong said it, and I'll say it as well. Coal-grade mountain is where some moves are going to be made. They'll go almost 100 miles on the road tomorrow, and we'll bring it to you live at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on Versus. The encore presentation will happen at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. George Hincapie had a few words for the breakaway today. He knew they had to work quite hard. Eventually, the 10 would work together. It included Garmin Slipstream's Christian Vandevelde. Unfortunately, Francisco Mancebo would fall by the wayside today, as would a number of other riders. But the crowds came out in force. They saw the best cyclists in the world, and they were not disappointed. Levi in yellow for Bob Roll, Phil Liggett, and Paul Sherwen. I'm Craig Ummer. We'll see you tomorrow.